Does real-life Inception work? Is it even possible? Can you physically plant an idea in someone's head and alter their perception of reality? I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me recently that really got me thinking about it, and it was perfect timing with Inception's 10th anniversary re-release in just 2 days from now. Now this isn't a scientific video as such, it's more of just a cool story that will hopefully get you thinking about it. At the time I was completely mind blown at it. All that being said, I think I do have a conclusive answer to all this, so you're going to want to stick around to the end to find out the full story and if real life Inception is possible. You're going to want to put on your thinking caps for this video because I can't be bothered drawing heaps of diagrams for you, so tough luck. For the sake of privacy, I'll be replacing all the real places with made up names. So the story begins when my good friend and fellow YouTuber Will came over for a sleepover. That night we lied in our beds having a usual casual conversation and beginning to fall asleep. Little did we know we wouldn't get to sleep for another 3 hours. Will, being his usual random self, decided to open the curtains and look out at the night view. As he lives in a valley, he doesn't normally get to see a view like this. Gazing at the view, Will noticed a certain highway he recognized. Starburst Highway, and was reminded of a trip he went on, and it goes something like this. So 3 weeks ago, Will and my brother Twiddletoes were riding back after a long day of mountain biking at Sugar Daddy Edge, but being their usual irresponsible selves, got sidetracked by a speed bump on the side of a steep slope. They zoomed down the hill to try to jump it and get some sick air time, but to their terrible disappointment, it wasn't even worth it. It was, as Will described it, the most mellow thing ever. And even worse, they found themselves lost. They knew this because Will saw a sign where they were of an area nowhere near his house. An area called Snickers. Will realised they must have taken a wrong turn somewhere. I wonder where that could have been. Will's excuse being that the road they were supposed to go down, Starburst Highway, looked identical to the one which they were on, which they had no idea what was called. All they knew was that the sun was setting unexpectedly fast and they had to get back soon. Will wasn't worried for a moment though, having had extensive experience navigating the wild landscape for fun. He looked to the nearest hill, Skittles Hill, remember that hill, and instantly knew how to navigate his way home from there. Using Skittles Hill as a reference point, they made their way home in less than 20 minutes, and also coincidentally about 20 minutes before complete darkness, as Will estimates. And that's the end of the story. Goodbye. Just kidding, of course. After Will told me a story, a question was raised in his head. How did he get back from Snickers to his house in less than 20 minutes? And this is where a heated argument started, basically revolving around where Snickers Hill actually was. For the sake of time, I made this into an extremely condensed version of the full argument, which went on for over 2 hours, going well past midnight. And this was all just to find one hill. Firstly, Will looked around to find his house as our main reference point, which we quickly found and agreed upon. It was just directly in front of us. That was pretty much the only easy thing to figure out that night. After finding Will's house, we naturally looked for Snickers. We knew that Snickers was beside and wrapped around Skittles Hill, but we disagreed upon where Skittles Hill actually was. Will said it was directly in front of us, maybe a few degrees to the right, and I said it was about 45 degrees to the right. Quite a big difference. One of our big problems was that it was night, so we only had streetlights and the lack of streetlights as reference points. So we pretty much had zero visibility. To me, it seemed that Will's view was just sort of shifted 45 degrees to the right. So I tried to explain to him another common reference point that we'd both been to many times before, Skittles Jungle, to help him sort of shift his view back in place or whatever. Long story short, after about 40 minutes of trying to explain and visualize each other's perspectives, we both realized that we knew that Skittles Jungle was in the same spot. But because of where we were sitting, it looked like we were pointing at different places on the landscape. 40 minutes because of that. Will told me what he thought again, just to be clear. He said that Skittles Hill was directly in front of our house. When he and Twiddletoes came back and found themselves at Snickers, they used Skittles Hill to find their way back, and he knows that Skittles Hill is directly in front of his house, which would make sense and explain how they got back so quickly, as it would just be in front of their house. I strongly disagreed for many reasons, but first made one small point. I pointed to a group of lights about 45 degrees to the right and said they were houses, and said since they looked the furthest away, they must be the furthest away. Not the strongest argument, I'll admit, but anyway, I went on to say that I know for a fact that those houses wrap around a hill there, which I think is is Skittles Hill. That would also make sense if my statement were correct. I also tried to show Will where I thought Skittles Hill was by using the lack of lights in an area as an outline for Skittles Hill, but it was hard for Will to visualize. He made a point that the lights in the distance could be apartment lights from apartments in Warhead's town, which has a lot of apartments, and not street lights. And that would explain why the lights were so small, because they were apartment lights, not street lights that were far away. I said that during the day I see this view and I'm sure that they're not apartments and they are the furthest away just by eyeing it out, and also that those buildings do wrap around that hill. He responded firmly and said he just doesn't think there is a hill there, and I couldn't really convince him otherwise because we just couldn't see anything. Just a quick word from our sponsor. Oh, sorry, never mind, we don't have a sponsor. If you like this video and subscribe, then we might have a sponsor one day. I first made a list of facts that we knew for, well, a fact, so we had something to build off. 1. Snickers is directly adjacent to the area Milky Way. 2. Milky Way is the northernmost area where we live that has houses. 3. Milky Way and Snickers both wrap around Skittles Hill. 4. Mount Gummy is the northernmost mountain in our view. And finally 5. Since Mount Gummy is more northern than any place with houses and Milky Way has houses, so it comes before Mount Gummy relative to us, in the direction of north, which is where Mount Gummy is, but not behind Mount Gummy, which is where I said it was, which would be north. Will wasn't sure that Mount Gummy was directly north, so I said that I've been living here for 4 years as of this day and see this view every day, and Will doesn't, so he's wrong. Will responded that he knows where these things are because he's extremely familiar with all the maps and hills around these areas. Determined to prove him wrong, I said to check his watch compass, and sure enough, it pointed to pretty much where I said it was. But Will, annoyingly, pointed out that north didn't directly point to where either of us said Skittles Hill was, instead lying somewhere in between. So north wasn't conclusive evidence as to where we thought Skittles Hill was. After hitting another metaphorical wall, I then remembered something. I made a challenge for myself to climb and conquer every hill in our area, and also told Will about this over 9 months ago. Remember that number? 9 months. There's a really big hill directly in front of our view, which I refer to as the big hill. On my challenge, I almost got to the summit, but stopped at a hill before it as I realized the big hill was ridiculously far away. I remember there was only to the right a hill which Will said was Skittles Hill, and on the other side of Skittles Hill were some houses, but a mountain range blocked any houses from going beyond the big hill, and definitely didn't go behind it. A highway ran between the hill I was on and Skittles Hill. Let's just call it Eminem's highway. Will admitted that my argument made sense and he would believe it if it weren't for just one thing, which is what he told me about next. Once a month, Will drives down Eminem's highway for a visit to a wonderful land called Tootsie Pop's Desert. Every time he drives back, he sees that Milky Way and Snickers are adjacent and wrap behind Skittles Hill. And he's sure of this because there's a famous sign there which says Snickers Milky Way. And he remembers this because it's like the dream chocolate bar. How could you not remember that? Every time he drives back, he stares at Skittles Hill, which is what he thinks is the big hill, until he gets home to sort of get a better reference between his house and Skittles Hill. Yeah, he's a bit of a strange one. Sorry, Will. But anyway, that's how he managed to find his way home, having sort of familiarized himself with the hills, I guess. And that's how he was completely confident that Skittles Hill was where he said it was, directly in front. We tried drawing diagrams, but this didn't really help. We just got more confused. Imagine the most confused you could ever be, then multiply that by 4.29. That's only 1/17th how confused we were. No, sorry, 4/25. Anyway, we were well and truly stumped. Both of our arguments seemed plausible in their own way, but neither of them added up. Paradox. We've been arguing for almost 2 hours now and felt as if we hadn't come any closer to unveiling the truth. Then, I remembered that on my quest to conquer every hill, I took photos. So we flipped through the images, hoping that one of them would clear it all up, and it did, but not in the way we expected. One of the very first images we looked at had a clear view of, what do you know, what I thought was Skittles Hill. Will looked at it and said, "See, that's the one I've been trying to tell you." And I was shocked and said, "Yeah, that's the one I've been trying to say was Skittles Hill." At that moment, we both came to another sad realization. We were talking about the same hill. This is all related, by the way, trust me. If we had just figured out this fact early on, we wouldn't have spent 2 hours arguing where a hill was. But I didn't feel as if those 2 hours were wasted. In fact, that 2 hours of time spent was one of the most interesting conversations I've ever had. To finish off the argument, we decided to figure out where we went wrong. To see where we went wrong. Will told me that from his house, Skittles Hill is pretty much right in front of him, so assumed that since our house lined up with his, Skittles Hill must also. He realized that his house must be obtuse relative to our house, so this essentially distorted his view 45 degrees. As I suspected early on, just saying. We were actually talking about different highways. Eminem's highway was actually a different highway to the one Will drives on to get to Tootsie Pop's desert. Let's just call that highway Candy Corn, even though we're never gonna mention it again. Also, I thought that the big hill was what Will thought was Skittles Hill, and Will wondered why, but we sort of just brushed that off as a misunderstanding until later. By the way, this is nearly over. And this was an extremely condensed version of the full argument, which went on for over 2 hours. Just imagine being twiddle-toes and trying to get to sleep as two idiots were arguing about a hill. If you've seen the movie Rashomon before, that's sort of what it was like for us. It was frustrating, but also really intriguing. And later on, I was even happy that we had that conversation. Done. Our throats were tied, and we were tied. Our throats were dry, and we were dry. No, sorry, we weren't dry. We were tied. We finally had the chance to just lie down, and would have fallen asleep if it weren't for just one thing. Will was left with one final nagging question. How I could have come to think that a hill so far away from everything else, including the area Skittles itself, how I thought that hill was Skittles Hill. All of a sudden, Will experienced something probably more creepy than anything that's happened to him thus far. Disturbed and amazed at the same time, he calmed himself down enough to tell me what happened. It was an actual flashback, like something out of a horror movie, as he described it. For those who don't know, about 9 months ago from the date of this video's release, Will and I set off on a hike to Skittles Jungle on a hunt for the legendary Candy Liger, shrouded in myth. On the way there, Will pointed with his camera he was vlogging with to a certain hill and said, "There's Skittles Hill in the distance. Maybe another day we'll go up that." Will had an actual flashback of that specific moment. He realized that this is where the misunderstanding could have come from. At the moment he said, "Look, there's Skittles Hill." I was looking at a different hill. The big hill. So I thought that that was the one Will was referring to as Skittles Hill. Immediately after that realization, Will thought to himself, I just planted a seed in someone's head and altered their perception of reality. Wait, where have I heard that before? I'll give you a hint. Faster than ends in
Inception.
At the time, we were absolutely mind blown at this. We realized that this one casual sentence, spoken 9 months ago, and not even directly to me, altered my perception of where everything was. 9 months later. Outro. The way this whole story sort of weaved together the way it does still amazes me. Like Skittles Hill was the way that Will found his way home, was also the stem of our confusion. For the first time I went to Skittles Jungle was like when the Inception happened. And even just our conversation, like our realizations or plot twists, however far you want the analogy to go. Like you couldn't write a script like this. Okay, whatever. But you get the idea. And although now it might not seem that amazing to you, I think it's still a fascinating story to think about. Like the most insignificant statement completely changed my beliefs of where everything was. I can almost guarantee that not everything you believe is true. And every false belief you have is right now making you see the world in a distorted view. I think this is pretty amazing or disturbing, however you want to look at it. These are some symbolisms that we thought of instantly when we were writing this down, which was well past midnight. I think Skittles Hill can be thought of as one of our big beliefs. If this one belief is false, then a whole network of your beliefs can be false too. Snickers and Milky Way and all the other candies can be thought of as the true state of reality. No matter what we think, Skittles and Milky Way aren't gonna change positions anytime soon. Unless there was an earthquake or something, but you get the idea. What we believe of Skittles Hill directly affects what we believe of Milky Way and Snickers. And so this is the final conclusion. Even the smallest, most insignificant words can have a monolithic impact on someone. So be careful what you believe, and be careful what you say to people. I think that's a good idea anyway. So the answer to this video's title that you've been so desperately wanting to know for the past 10 minutes or so, does real life Inception work? And to that, after experiencing what I told you, I'd have to say yes, absolutely. In fact, it's kind of scary how easy it is. You don't need any high-tech machinery or complex techniques. All you need is one word. Hey, if you got to the end of this video, you obviously liked it, so leave a like, share it, and if you haven't already, subscribe. What are you doing if you haven't subscribed? Subscribe, do it.